مساء الخير، هالمرة من ألمانيا. وعدناكم السنة الماضية بمحتوى جديد بيتناول جميع ما يتعلق بصناعة الموضة. حلقة الليلة عن علامة لايكا اللي هي الشركة الأوروبية الوحيدة الباقية في مجال صناعة الكاميرات اليدوية المحترفة، والتي كان لها تأثير بالغ الأهمية في مجال الصحافة والأزياء أيضاً. قبل ما نبدأ بسرد تاريخها، لنتكلم عن علاقة لايكا بقطاع الموضة وكيف تم استخدام تقنياتها لإنتاج صور أيقونية من قبل أشهر المصورين العالميين. بفضل بساطتها مهدت هذه العلامة الطريق للتصوير الفوتوغرافي الحديث، والسبب السرعة، الصمت والخفة في الحركة في ميدان التصوير الصحفي على وجه الخصوص. من أوسكار برناك لأنغري كارتيه-بريسون، جاري وينوغارد، ويليام أوغلستونو وعدد من أهم مصوري الموضة بالوقت الحالي انشهروا باستخدام كاميرات لايكا. تم استخدام هذه الكاميرات في كواليس المصمم العالمي جورجيو أرماني، بالإضافة لتعاون مبهر مع علامة زانيا التي قدمت مجموعة كابسول بالعام 2020. يعتبر هذا التعاون ارتباط تعبيري يجمع ما بين الفن والإبداع من خلال حقائب كروس بودي سميت بالإنستاباك، والكاميرا هي طبعاً لايكا مقياس ل 18 ملم. إليكم بعض الصور اللي تم التقاطها بعدسة لايكا بقطاع الموضة التي كسحت أغلفة أهم المجلات والحملات الإعلامية لدور أزياء شهيرة. إليكم هذه الرحلة في اللايت سبارك في مدينة ويلتسر على مدى 3 أيام. بدأت الجولة داخل المتحف مع أندريا باتشيلا مدير العلاقات العامة العالمية والتسويق، واللي خص الفريق بجولة تحدث من خلالها عن مراحل نمو وتطور لايكا التاريخية.
Here we are inside the lobby of the factory. So on the back of that wall we have the whole production. On the top in these two towers we have all the offices. And here we have the Leica Hall of Fame 2021.
So this is yearly?
Every year we tribute a photographer, a great photographer, for his achievements in photography.
And why Ralph Gibson this year?
Because he's a master of photography, he's a master of black and whites especially, and he's a master of Leica. He has only used Leica cameras since the 60s.
I've known for the longest time that writing with light requires the most delicate instrument. The real reason I have stayed with the rangefinder Leica for so many years is because early on I realized this camera was capable of doing anything I was capable of asking it to do. The rangefinder is where my entire universe coincides. I see what's inside the frame, I see what's outside of the frame, and I triangulate myself between the two.
I would like to start with this one because just a few minutes before the camera started rolling, you told me quite an emotional story about this particular camera that saved its photographer in the Syrian war.
This small exhibition that we have here is called the Lifesaver, and we are exhibiting the cameras that were used in very particular conditions. This camera in particular was the camera of Gabriele Michalizzi, an Italian photo reporter who was working in Syria when he was shot by a grenade. And his life was saved because the grenade basically exploded in front of his face, but the camera took the beat. I mean, he was severely injured, but he was able to retrieve the pictures from the SD card inside.
Oh, wow. So he was still able to do his job and tell
He
the
was still
story.
نبذة سريعة عن تاريخ لايكا قبل ما نترك الحديث للسيد باتشيلا اللي تشرب تاريخ لايكا وشرح لنا عن أهمية هذه المراحل التاريخية. كانت كاميرات القرن التاسع عشر تقريباً عالقة على حامل ثلاثي الأرجل أو بكل بساطة الترايبودز، وكانت تقيلة للغاية. اتطلب الموضوع انتقال الفيلم بشكل عام إلى دعامات مرنة سهلت استخدامها من قبل المصورين الصحفيين لا سيما في الحروب. تأسست لايكا كشركة عالمية من قبل إرنست ليتس ويلتزر، وكان شعارها مع المستخدم من أجل المستخدم.
For people that don't know the brand so much, what does Leica stand for? Where does the name come from?
Actually, it's not the first name that
Yeah.
was thought for this
Yeah.
camera. When Oscar Barnack designed the camera,
Yeah.
invented the camera, the first name it was given was a Lilliput camera, thinking to the Gulliver Travels.
Yeah.
And to show how small this camera was in comparison to what was the production of the
Yeah.
time. In 1925, it was decided to produce the camera. They decided to call it Leica as the acronym of Lights, who is the name of the owner of the company and the name of the company, and the Lights.
Interesting.
So
Yeah.
it's Lights camera became Leica.
When Leica came to the industry, it brought a new set of needs that were not there before. Can you tell us a little bit more when Leica was introduced to the market, what kind of barriers did it break? What kind of industries did it disrupt, if I can say so?
I guess it did not disrupt an industry because photography at the time was really artisanal.
Yeah.
Sometimes the photographers they were building the wooden camera themselves for
Yeah.
them. The idea of Barnack was it came by accident. He was actually
Best
trying
things,
to
best innovations
create.
come by
Yes,
accident.
he was working on film cameras at Lights, and he was working on basically on an exposure meter, something to pre-expose the film for cinema to check the sensitivity of the film. The biggest idea was to use the film that was used for cinema and change it from vertical, where it was going in the movie cameras, to horizontal, doubling from 24 by 18 frames to 24 by 36 frame.
How many years did it take for Barnack to kind of reach to a place to create the Leica A, which is an iconic, obviously, model in the history of Leica? And what was the specific functionality of that camera back then, would you say?
He invented the first camera in 1913, 1914, but then there was the war. Germany came out very badly from the First World War. We always praise Oscar Barnack as the inventor, but the man that was behind what we know today as Leica is Ernst Leica II, the son of the founder, because the engineers at Leica, the managers at Leica, were not believing in the Oscar Barnack invention. They were thinking it was not a good invention. In 1924, he decided, we will risk it, was the sentence. We will risk it. We will build the Barnack camera. And he decided personally to, against the management, it was a small negative. And to create picture, you had to enlarge it. So there was not in the mindset of photographers the idea that you could take a small negative and enlarge it to have a good picture. And this was made possible from a third person. That was Max Berek, the inventor of the Leica lenses, because Leica from the beginning has been able to create incredibly performing lenses.
100 years of Leica photography.
When we celebrated our 100 years from the first prototype camera, we decided to select 36 pictures. 36 is because to remind the role of 36 exposures. They are not all taken by professional photographers. For example, you also find a picture taken in 1914 by Ansleit II, the son of the founder of the company. You can see that picture. It's a first glimpse of street photography.
Yeah.
That was possible because he was not carrying a wooden camera like
And
everyone
millennials
else.
thought they created street style.
Yes.
Street photography, photojournalism, the way that we know it, photos that impacted us politically and culturally throughout history would not have been possible, honestly, without the Leica cameras. And Leica contributed into creating that kind of trend that was not very existing during that time. Tell us a little bit more about photojournalism, street photography, and Leica. What was the correlation, and what would you say were the key moments in history where a Leica camera was used and it contributed to actual change?
There has been what is called the golden age of photojournalism that went from, let's say, the 40s to the end of the 60s. Why the golden age? Because in those years television was not yet so strong and so present, and everything people was knowing about the world, about the events, was through the pictures of the photographers that were going around the world. All these photographers, whatever kind of camera they were using, they were also carrying a Leica camera. Because the Leica camera was, and still is today, and this is also the success of the camera in the hands of the street photographers, is the less obtrusive medium that you have, the less obtrusive tool that you have. Is not intimidating for the subject. It's a camera you can have in your hand. Is small, is nice.
I like the fact that you say it's not
the
intimidating, because that relationship between the subject and the camera becomes a beautiful relationship, and the photographer is able to capture those iconic kind of moments. If you were to think about a timeline of the milestones of the most important innovations by Leica, I wrote them down throughout the tour. You have the UR Leica, which was in 1914. You have the 1A in 1925. You have the Leica 2 in 1932. You have the Leica M3 discontinued 1954. You have the Leica Flex SL. You have the Leica M6 all the way to S1, and then we talk about this move to digital and how agile the brand was in this kind of transition.
Beside the Leica UR, the first Leica, the prototype of Varna, that for sure is the most important. I would say the Leica 1A in 1925, the first camera to go on the market, that was the first milestone. I would then jump directly to 1954 with the Leica M3 that started the M line. From there on, Leica created something that's still existing today exactly in the same way. The digital cameras of today are exactly the same with outside, but completely different inside from the Leica M3 made in 1954. I would also pick the Leica M6 because it has been the most successful camera of Leica. And then I would move to the Leica M9, the first digital Leica that was not so important from an historical point of view, but it was the camera that made clear that Leica could survive in the digital era. So that camera was our bridge to the new era of digital cameras. And everything you see here is built because of the creation of the M9 and the success of the M9. That camera proved to all the Leica lovers around the world that they could still do their way of Leica photography, rangefinder photography, even in the digital era.
ومن بعدها توجهنا كالعادة إلى مشاغل لايكا، حيث تابعنا مراحل تصنيع الام 11 وكانت تجربة مذهلة. بالنسبة إلي.
It's a bit noisy, but we are in the production site, and that's only normal. I'm super excited today to get to know the creative process, the assembly process, which is happening here in Lightspark. So take me through this journey.
This is the grinding, because as you see, the surface is not transparent yet. You can see this surface is already very smooth.
And the other side still
and
not.
the other side is still rough. For some lenses, we need to do even another step. It's the lacquering of the lens rim. Paint is even, not too thick and not too thin.
I go to workshops quite a lot between watchmaking and
and
jewelry, and they're all the same in a way or another.
جولنا مع فريق لايكا بالمدينة التاريخية اللي اشتهرت بصناعة العدسات لنتعرف على جذور هوية وفلسفة لايكا التي تأسست في العام 1914. تزامنت هذه الرحلة مع معرض صور للفنان الأمريكي الشهير ستيف ماكاري، المصور الأمريكي الذي انشهر بصورة الفتاة الأفغانية التي اكتسحت عناوين الصحافة العالمية نظراً لقوتها وأهميتها الاجتماعية والإنسانية.
What a better way to spend your life than to experience these different cultures, different people, and I want to do that.
كاد إنه يخسر حياته أكثر من مرة بسبيل هذه المهنة المشرفة، وها نحن نلتقي به اليوم لنتكلم عن هذه البورتريهات التي عرف بها، ذكرياته وعلاقته بعلامة لايكا. من الجوائز العديدة اللي حاز عليها المصور الشهير Award of Excellence for Women in Afghanistan, Leica Hall of Fame, Golden Doves، بالإضافة لميداليات عديدة للعمل في الميدان الصحافي.
I'm super happy to have met you. You're somebody I have always looked up to. Your pictures have made changed perceptions of how people looked at specific conflict. You've had such an interesting life. So it's really an honor to meet you.
Thank you.
How do you feel about being here in Frankfurt, exhibiting today with Leica, with 70 photographs, I believe, this time?
Well, you know, I have an amazing relationship with Leica. I have an amazing relationship with the camera. I don't think I've ever used a better camera than the one I'm using right now.
Which is?
It's a Leica SL2.
Okay.
It's amazing. I mean, if I had this camera 20 or 30 years ago, I could have done amazing things.
What I really want to talk to you about is that relationship that you have between your subjects. And how difficult was it for you over the years to kind of control those relationships, for those lines not to be blurred? And did you ever find yourself in a situation where you had to act as a photographer more than, you know, like a human? on the ground?
I think it's a really kind of a sacred duty to tell their story, to inform people that these people need help. Here's the situation, here's the problem, now let's do something about it. So people have to be informed, and they need to see
That's your mission.
and read about what's going on. So I figure, you know what, the best thing I can do in this situation is to show people what's happening.